we will let them in. So welcome to today's webinar about building your authority, your brand with content. And it's, and Penelope, I can see you from Brisbane North, thank you. And Sybil, yeah. So obviously from Brisbane, I know Nathan's online as well. So I know Nathan's from Brisbane. So let's hope it is only 3 days. So let's hope it's only a 3-day lockdown and we do get to enjoy some Easter. So welcome to the webinar today. It really is as I was saying prior, it really is a content marketing that a lot of people shy away from. And hopefully during the course of today's webinar, it'll give you some added momentum or some inspiration to get out there and really have a good old honest crack at it. So one of the first things I obviously have to do is that this is an ASBAS, an Australian Small Business Advisory Service webinar. It is part of a 3-year program funded federally to increase the digital capability of small business owners. It's also been expanded to allow for people from a business resilience and a business planning perspective in and around recovery from COVID. So it really does help small businesses meet to try and meet their educational growth needs. So it is a program that's administered by Business Station in WA, and here in Queensland, I'm part of the Queensland crew, I guess. They've partnered with Regional Development Australia with their Brisbane office. So a little bit about me. I'm the ASBAS advisor out here in Redland City. A 30-year retail career. I came out of that in 2013. And started my own leadership coaching business of, I've got a real passion for leadership and developing better leaders. And along the way, I've become what I would call myself as a business skills mentor. So a lot of, I do work obviously with this particular program, ASBAS, and I'm also part of the TAFE Small Business Solutions team as a business skills mentor. My passion is leadership, and my passion is about helping business owners really get their mindset in the place for growth and for being proactive in relation to their business. You can see my contact details there. And let's have a look at what we're going to cover today. So the webinar today is about content marketing. So, and it's really about taking those steps to build that authority, that brand, that expertise that you have through the use of content marketing. So during the webinar, we will uncover a number of different things. We'll talk about the key ideas, what content marketing really is, the main purpose in and around your content. We're going to look at what I would call the criteria of success that you need to have for your content marketing. We'll look at the content mediums, and we'll look at some of the platforms in relation to that. And then finally, we'll talk about the dark side of content creation. So it really is quite a jam-packed webinar. So please make sure you've got some note-taking paraphernalia, I guess, there. At the end of the webinar, I'll be walking through what I'll send you out by email so that you'll be able to progress what we've talked about today into the next stage. So let's look at what content marketing is. And there's 3 key ideas here. So the first one, and I've termed it humble self-promotion, and we'll go into that in just a sec. We get a bit of a concept around content marketing, and we see these self-promoters out there, but really content marketing is a humble form of self-promotion. So we need to explore that and to have a look at those thoughts. We want to be able to provide valued information to our potential clients and to our customer and client base now, and it's an opportunity for storytelling. So they're the 3 key ideas in and around what content marketing is. So when we look at that concept of humble self-promotion, now we've all seen those rug sales commercials at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's not content marketing, and that's certainly not humble self-promotion. And it was really interesting. I had a conversation I do a podcast as part of my marketing, and I had a conversation with a creative marketer from California on that particular podcast. And it was really interesting the way, because I spoke about the Australian concept of we don't necessarily want to put ourselves out there on a pedestal, that we're really quite humble in relation to it. And the way that he described it, I could certainly understand it. And he said, but Tony, if you're really good at something, you really want to be letting people know that you're really good at it, because ultimately that's a service that you're providing. So one of the first things, so with that in mind, it really is about trying to remove our negative thoughts and potentially our negative feelings about being seen as a bit of a self-promoter. It really is about establishing ourselves or yourself as an authority figure within your niche. And with that, it's really important to be authentic and honest. So authenticity means different things to different people, but to me, it means that you're 100% yourself. You're not faking your personality. You're not creating this public persona. You're not, if someone interacts with you down at the beach, that's going to be the same person that they're interacting with at a business function, say, for example. So that's what we talk about when we talk about authenticity. And it's important for many reasons, because, and one of the real reasons is that if you create a fake facade in and around who you are and what your business is, often that will seem awkward, it'll seem uncomfortable, and there will come a time there will come a time where that facade will crumble, because we either get tired or we get found out. So, and the last thing that you're really wanting is for people to learn that you're not the person that you said that you were. So authenticity and honesty is incredibly important when it comes to this concept of humble self-promotion. Now, transparency is really important, because transparent authority figures are okay with telling people when they don't know the answer. And I guess during this whole pandemic that we've been going through for, what seems to be like forever, we've seen leaders that have tried to bluff their way through and think that they've got the answers. And then we've got other politicians or other leaders that are saying, well, in all honesty, we don't have the answers. So, and things may change every single day. Now, that's being transparent. That's not trying to bluff their way through. So, but so that's another real key component. So the component of being real, honest, and humble is how you want to be branding your personality. If you're a nerd, for want of another word, a computer geek, you want to be branding yourself as that, because that's who you are. That's who you honestly are. And people will connect with that, and your clients will connect with that. But putting yourself on a pedestal and saying things that who you are that you're not is actually going to create more problems than solutions. So being real is important, and it's incredibly important if you want to create and maintain your authority brand. And especially so when you receive, say, criticism or negative feedback, it's really important to be honest and open with that and be able to take that in and reflect on where that came from. So then we look at the valued information concept. Now, this is so with your potential clients, you really want to be, or your client base, you want to be sending them valued information, what I call good stuff. And it's really important to be thinking about from an individual aspect. So think about what it is that you consume. We all consume content. And importantly, think about what it is that you click away from. So things like misleading headings or headlines and all of that. I get quite annoyed when I click on something expecting something and then not getting it. So that actually does damage to your brand. So you really want to be thinking about the valued information. So we all consume content. We all log on to Facebook each and every day. We're all going to news sites or blogs. We've got our authority sites that we're probably going to, whether it's be news, media, or in our spiel of or a span of influence, or in our industry. And most of us are going to be open-minded enough to go looking for content. So once again, think about what it is that you consume, and importantly, what it is that you click away from. Because ultimately what you want to be sharing and with your content is good stuff that will help people solve problems and will help build trust. And when we do this, this will inherently promote you. So if we do a good job of providing valued information, it starts branding you as an expert in that particular field. Sometimes we get a bit challenged by what it is that we want to share. So we want to, so if we're a service provider, we want to provide value by helping our customers solve problems. But we also want to be seen. So for example, if I'm a website designer, I might want to provide some value in relation to a bit of a how-to. How do you prep before you go see a website designer? What are the main flows of a website? So they might write about some of the plugins that they use, for example. So we want to be looking at the problems, the potential problems of our client base, and then looking for ways that we can provide some value that's going to position you as an expert. So we want to be able to educate the audience. We want to be able to solve solve some problems. And ultimately, this is a way of pre-marketing ourselves also. So think of it like a little bit like that, pre-marketing. So I want to get people aware of who I am by providing some valuable content. Okay, the last key area is storytelling. And this is really, really a fundamental thing that we all need to be doing. So when I talk about storytelling, this is your chance to tell your story. So there are a number of different, I'll use my business as a example. There are a number of different leadership coaches. There's a number of different coaches that can help you develop better leadership. So how you can differentiate yourself in those aspects is by telling your story. How did you get to be where you are today? What was your progression? What was your journey? So your product might be very similar to your competition. Your service might be similar. And let's face it, every single business out there says that they provide great customer service and quality. Maybe everything you do, everything you sell is similar to someone else. And the only difference fundamentally is your story and your personality. And this is where we need to embrace that uniqueness that is about us, because this is the difference. This is what's going to separate you and make yourself distinct in what it is that you do. Now, the reality is that your competitors can't tell your story. Only you can tell your story. And this is a really good component of what content marketing should be. Now, the other thing is that we've been brought up with stories all our lives. We've been told stories since we were a kid, and stories engage a number of parts in the brain. So it makes us feel good. When someone says once upon a time, or I'm going to tell you a story, we actually get a bit of a reaction from that within our brain. And it's going to be exactly the same for your customers. When you're telling a story, that's going to breed some connection. And that's going to be also to help build trust. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But so the three, so what is content marketing? It really is about, part of it is really trying to tell your story, which is why you're unique in the marketplace. Now, we look at the main purposes in and around content, and fundamentally, there's three. One is an education piece, one is an entertainment piece, and one is the motivation and inspiration piece. Now, when we educate, what we're attempting to do is to display our expertise. So education for us fundamentally might be something really important for you to be thinking about in your content marketing strategy. But we need to just think for a sec before we just go out there and create a strategy that's all built around education and it's all built around creating yourself as an expert authority. Think about what gets shared. Think about what you consume, for example. Think about the platforms. And so when you start thinking about that and you start to take it to the next level, education content is incredibly important. But what gets shared and what becomes, small intents and purposes viral, what gets looked at more often is that entertainment piece and that motivation and inspiration piece. So think about the last piece of content that you shared on any number of your social media platforms. Odds on it was something around entertaining others, something that resonated with you, something that you enjoyed, or it might have been something that you found particularly motivating. And this is why it's important that we look at the strategy from an overall viewpoint. So, and if we can create within our strategy education that inspires and motivates, that's particularly fantastic. And every now and again, and what you see with a number of influencers out there nowadays is that instead of just sharing their content, they're also going to share the funny video of the cat that, whatever situation the funny cat gets into, they're going to share some humorous stuff because they acknowledge that this is the thing that captures people's attention. So we need to be mindful of this because we need a mix. So we just cannot have it as purely education to be providing our expertise. So it's important, absolutely, but we need to be looking at how we cover all three as we prepare and look at our strategy in delivering our content management. So when we look at, but importantly, and this is really important, content marketing should help you create connection, break down barriers, and build trust. So it does something a lot more important. So the main purpose is to stimulate that personal connection for people to see that there's some relevance in what it is that you're sharing. It's establishing trust because even though content needs a call to action, and we'll talk about that right towards the end, it is something that's done in a way where we're adding value in relation to it. So we're talking obviously about online content here. So what we're looking is that importantly, your content marketing strategy will create that connection. It'll break down barriers, and ultimately you're wanting it to build trust, because when you get into that building trust stage, that's when we start to create customers, and that's when we start to create clients. And this is the real power in and around content marketing. Now, I do have two criteria for success, and this is really important. The first one is you must have passion and you must have some expertise, right? So if you're thinking of getting into a business model where you've got zero passion and zero interest, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to create good quality content. If you're not turned on, it's going to be incredibly difficult for you to turn your potential clients on. If you're not passionate about it, it's going to be incredibly hard for you to demonstrate your authority. So the first factor that you need to have within your business is that passion and that expertise. We can't fake that. So we need to have that first. We need to be able to say, yes, this is what I'm doing. I'm passionate about what it is, whether you're a musician, a creative, or a coach, or a coffee shop. If we've got passion and we've got that expertise, that's going to help us in the criteria for success. Because the second one is that we need to be able to display that passion. We need to be able to display that passion and the expertise, and we have to be confident in doing so. We have to have that confidence. Now, if you are an expert and you are absolutely atrocious at creating content, content marketing is going to be an incredible struggle. If you're a vibrant coach who's going to help people with whatever problem that they face, but you've got a very monotone voice, it's going to be incredibly difficult for people to tune into your videos. So we need to be able to develop a skill set, develop a confidence to deliver our passion and our expertise. And this means whether it's written, audio, or video, or live videos, that we need to be in a constant state of practice. So that we are learning as we go, and the better we get, the more competent, the more competent we get, the more confident we get. So whether we choose any of those aspects, any of those formats as our main vehicle, ultimately we want to have the confidence to be able to deliver that. So build your expertise, get better, get better, get better. And we have to keep working on our skills to display our passion and our expertise confidently. We need to be able to do that. So they're the two criteria for success. So let's have a quick recap on where we are. So first up, what is it? Humble self-promotion, valuable information, and storytelling. Those three components are basically what content marketing, the key ideas behind content marketing. What is the purpose? We want to educate, we want to share our expertise, we want to entertain, and we want to inspire and motivate, right? And then finally, the criteria for success, we need to have that passion, we need to have that expertise, and we have to be confident to display that. So midway through, let's have a look at some of the key concepts before we get into a little bit more. First up, we obviously need to understand who our customer is, and more importantly, I guess, what we can do for them. So where do your understanding our customer is incredibly important. Where do they hang out? If we're in business, we obviously have a target market and a customer avatar. So we need to be able to ask ourselves, who's our customer? What do we do for them? What are the problems that we solve? Where are they is another part of that target customer equation. So what solutions are they looking for? What solutions are they looking for to solve their problems? So, and part of the thing that we talk about here with our customers is there's a couple of things that we want to be for them. We want to be a connector. So sometimes we're going to connect them to people, to our products and services that can solve the job, the problem, or we may be connecting them with someone else because we're not quite, don't have a product or a service that's going to solve the problem that maybe they're particularly facing. So we want to be a connector. We want to be a learner, because a lot of our customers are going to be teaching us as we go. So our audience, our followers, our customers, our clients, we should be learning from them, getting feedback from them. We're engaging in conversations. We're asking questions. We're showing them that we care in and around what it is that they're wanting for. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move into the platform stages. So when we're looking at the platforms, understanding who our customers are, where are they? So for example, Facebook age group nowadays is more middle-aged from what the stats are showing us, and the younger generation are hanging out more and more on TikTok. And I'm not saying that there's no middle-aged people on TikTok, but there are some real clear demographics that seem to focus on certain platforms. Millenniums are more in line based around the Instagram platform, for example. We see a lot of creatives on Pinterest. So we need to understand where our customers are, what platforms are they utilizing, what groups are they sitting in, and then obviously, while you may be on a number of platforms, be very clear that it's probably there's going to be one or two that you're going to focus on, because that is where your target customer is. So your target customer, I mean, while we talk about the Facebook age demographics changing, fundamentally everyone still has a Facebook account. Some people just don't go there as much as what they used to, for example. So, but you've got to find out where your potential customers are or where your audience is and understand what platforms are going to work best. And then we have to commit and focus on and be really clear around our strategy. So the last little bit in just this section, keywords. So this isn't about what I want to share in content, because what I want to share is maybe not what my target customer want me to share. So what is important is that we understand what our customers are looking for, what our audience is looking for. So what are they searching for? What are the hot topics at the moment? And what does your customer need to know? So this all forms part of that whole strategy piece on building your authority. If, you know, and there's tools out there that will help you do this. So Google Keyword Planner is the first one that always comes to mind. It's free, it's part of your Google Ads account. And it really does give you an indicator of what people are searching for in your industry. And it gives you an understanding of those, the numbers of people searches, potential searches happening. There's a number of other platforms, but that's the one that's most commonly used, I would imagine. Hot or trending topics is really, if you want to be seen as an audience and there is an issue in your industry or a problem or something's come to light in your industry, to be able to share your expertise in and around that, starts to helps you be relevant to your particular audience. And sometimes that's going to give you a significant boost. So especially on a professional network like LinkedIn, if there's a trending topic or a hot topic that happens today, and you've shared, say, for an example, an authority piece around that, and then added your own thoughts as part of your content, that can really give you quite a significant boost. Just as making a comment on some of those authority posts can give you a significant boost in getting seen in this authority in the expert space. So hot and trending topics is really, really important for you to keep abreast of, you know, and even when we look at what is the problem that your customer faces and what do they need to know. And that's really important that we're writing or doing content for our customers and or our potential customers or to our audience, because, and not writing it because it makes me feel good. So one of the really key things in and around being seen as an authority. So let's look at the different mediums of content, right? So when we start thinking about the different ways that we can take our message, the different ways that we can talk, whether it's to educate, entertain, or motivate and inspire, there's a number of different aspects that we can do. And sometimes just writing a blog post is going to be your best way to explain a point and potentially the best thing that you can do. And it's also something that a lot of people, I suppose, fall back to because they're not quite as comfortable doing a video, for example. So it's really important that we really do hone our writing skills and that we are comfortable with what we write. So sometimes your audience also is not going to have time to watch a video, whereas they can read something. So and usually a good blog post is going to be in that 300 to 700 word scenario. So it's it can be read or at least skimmed quite quickly. So we want to be thinking about what's creating our own blog on our website so that we've got the ability for people to visit and then have a look at some of the content that we're sharing. Publishing your own book just seems to get easier and easier. Self-publishing is now a really good, strong platform for, and it's quite a simple one to navigate, in all honesty. Digital book publishing has never been easier. So don't wait to think that you'll write a book one day. If there's a book within you, start the process now. Start brainstorming what that book would look like, because a book is, once again, a really good way to get some authority. It doesn't need to be a New York bestseller. It doesn't need to be even published by an unknown publisher. The self-publishing process works really, really well. And that book becomes what many people would call their biggest form of business card, because instead of just giving someone a business card, you can actually give them a copy of your book, which is a fantastic way. So it's a really good way to build that expertise. Make sure that if you do have a blog and someone's taken the time to comment on it, that you're acknowledging that comment or providing some insight, some of your own expertise to that. So it's also a great opportunity for you to engage with the people, your audience. It's a great opportunity to once again share that expertise. It's also, and I mentioned before, places like LinkedIn, it's a really good place where you can show your expertise with a insightful comment on a authority post from someone. And once again, that's helping you stand out. It's not a self-promoting post, it's a post that's showing your expertise and your insight. And it's certainly not going to have a call to action on it because it's on someone else's authority post. But the reality is that by showing and providing your insight and expertise in the way of a comment, it really does help you set yourself up as that expert. So even though most people wouldn't believe that content marketing is about what they deliver and what they do themselves, the reality is that it can be just as effective when we're utilizing our skills and expertise commenting on somebody else's posts. Doing a newsletter for your mailing list is an important aspect of written content. And the other one is, I've sort of called it curated content. It's where you might find a comment, you might find an article that resonates on, Harvard Business Review, say, for example, and the Harvard Business Review. And so you share that onto one of your platforms with your own insight as to what you took away, the key point, or maybe providing an alternate solution. So that helps you once again show people that that you're an expert and you're an authority. Those how-to things, 5 steps to do things, are also incredibly well searched for and found in our search engine. So if you can provide 5 helpful tips to live a happier and more joyful life as part of your content strategy, that's going to help you get found, and it's going to be something that people are going to be looking for. The other area that I haven't put up here, but to think about, is that there are some reputable industry blogs. I mentioned that Harvard Business Review. There's there's major platforms. There's Huffington Post. There's other platforms out there, and if you can create, there are ways that you can get your content onto those authority sites, and that really does create a real great opportunity for you to be sharing your expertise. You do need to have a little bit of a track record. It can be a little bit of a laborious process at times, but there is a way that that can happen. So if that focus in on your own, of course, initially, and getting into those quality habits of getting your content out. But those opportunities can and do exist. So don't just write them off. If there is a huge amount of authority in saying that you've had a published piece on Huffington Post, for example. Let's have a look at video, and it's one that most people, from my experience, are most scared of. Getting themselves out on video, and I guess there's a couple of different aspects here. So some people won't do a video because of the production concept. So the thing I want to share is that what you're looking for with whatever video you do is the quality content. So you want that video to have value to your audience. You don't necessarily measure that value by the production content. So there's a reason why people like Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone and whatnot do live videos via their iPhone. It breeds an authenticity, it breeds a spontaneity, sort of a feel towards that sort of content that they're providing. They'll also have their high production numbers, but the reality is, don't let the production scare you off. Sitting in front of a camera should just be part of our processes nowadays. So be very comfortable moving into that space, and don't be put off by the fact that you're doing it on your iPhone or you're doing it via your webcam on your computer, because it's about the quality of the content that matters and not the quality of the production value. So it's still one of the best ways to get your message out, especially if you're looking to motivate and inspire or to do a how-to. Those aspects are really good with video because you can actually start walking through that process live with people. There's a huge range of, there's a plethora of platforms, there's formats, there's all sorts of things that you can be doing with videos. A couple of key tips: make sure that you've got captioning in your video, because a lot of people now have got their small screen open while they're watching the big screen in the lounge room. So you want to have your captions or the words appearing, because most of those videos are being played with sound off. The short format seems to be where we're going. Longer form videos have still got a place, but it seems that most video content now is being consumed as we scroll. So the short format is probably more in line with that. And in the online learning space, we're seeing more and more the concept of micro learnings. So instead of having a lesson, for example, that might have a 40-minute video, what we're seeing more and more is that maybe that subject has 10 4-minute videos and then an exercise. So the shorter format seems to be the one that the industry is moving to. And especially when you see like the platforms themselves, like, I've recently gone on and started doing some things with TikTok as a bit of a test. And, from what I can understand, a 7-second video is the one that gets the most views on TikTok. 7 seconds. So their normal format on TikTok, for example, is 15 seconds. So it gives you a really quick, short, sharp burst and a statement, and that's probably about it. But by the same token, it gives you that opportunity to get in front of a vast number of people in a very short space of time. TikTok now allows 60 seconds, but even when you're looking at things like Instagram lives and whatnot, the preferred timing there, I think, is anywhere, depending on the platform, from 30 seconds to 60 seconds. LinkedIn now has stories, 30-second stories. So the better that you can encapsulate the value in what you're providing in a shorter space as possible is going to give you some momentum in your video game. But once again, it's about practice. It's about just getting out there and doing it, and just learning how to feel comfortable in front of a camera. Some people are naturally comfortable. Other people need to build into that. So, whenever you're doing, say, a live presentation to someone, if you're like me and you do a number of workshops, video some of it, put it on, get your iPhone or your iPad and put it onto a tripod and do some video and just see what little bits you can pull out. Because even though you may not want to share the whole workshop, you may want to share that little snippet because you said something that was just amazing and you've amazed yourself and you want to be able to share that. So video is it's still going to be a big thing. We're never going to lose video. It's just that the formats are going to change. And as I said, long format is still relevant, but the shorter you can get, the more concise you can get your message, the more likely that you'll get some sort of views and followership. Okay. Audio is another one of the mediums that we're going to talk about. I spoke very quickly about the podcast that I do, for example. Part of my marketing process, part of branding me as an expert, is I run a podcast. It's called Today's Leader, and I interview leaders from all around the world, which is quite an amazing part of my own self-development, to be honest. But podcasting is the primary source, I guess, in and around audio, because we do have audio books and we do have online programs where you can use audio quite effectively. And it's a really interesting place because longer format seems to be more readily consumed than shorter format. So once again, I'm not saying short format doesn't have a place. It certainly does. But the long format, and when you look at the #1 podcast in the world, which is the Joe Rogan show, some of his episodes can go for 3 hours. So, but it's the most, like millions of downloads and listens on every single episode. So it's quite a phenomenon. So it allows you that opportunity to build some trust, build some things, build that trust and alignment with your audience, share your expertise, you know, whether that's in a leadership or a, now, Penelope, I've got you coming back into audio. Did you have a question?
Yeah, what's the difference between long form and short form?
Okay, so short form would be, sorry, I should have explained that. So long form is like a derivative name for anything, I guess, over half an hour. So most people nowadays consume video in a very short condensed time. So they would suggest that a video should be less than 10 minutes if you're, and as I was sharing, some of the formats themselves are now as little as 7 seconds or 15 seconds. Long form audio or long form podcast is, I would class as anything that goes over a 30-minute period. So a lot of people try and aim their podcast for around that 20-minute mark. Whether that's a known sweet spot or not, the jury is still out. But the long form format seems to be a much more popular aspect in audio than what it does in video. So, so for example, there's a podcast out there called Happier by Gretchen Rubin, and they mix it. So they've got, so their podcast, they do what they call a Little Happier, which is a 2-minute podcast. But they also do their weekly show, which is about that 40 minutes to 60-minute scenario. So they sort of mix it, and they're a very successful podcast because of who they are. Gretchen Rubin's a best-selling author. So, but long form, yeah, long form just seems to be a little bit more popular.
Okay. So really just time. Long form means a long podcast.
Yeah. It's
and a short form is a short podcast. Yeah. Okay.
So, and one of the things that I want you to think about if you are thinking about going into podcasting or going into the audio world is think about where people, your listeners are actually listening to it. So it's slightly different to say the video. So videos are being consumed a lot more silently, and hence the need to have those captions. Whereas audio is something that you're in the car, you're driving somewhere, you're working, it's on in the background. You know, it does become sort of more conducive to that long form as well. So just think about that also if you're, you know, if you're wanting to share some value in the form of a written worksheet, for example, someone in a car is not going to be able to download that particular worksheet. So when you're doing your show notes for your podcast, make sure you've got very clear links. And the other key area in relation to audio, especially if you're looking at a podcast, is you need to be consistent. So your followers, if they're expecting you to deliver a podcast every Thursday at 10 o'clock, you want to be delivering a podcast every Thursday at 10 o'clock. Consistency helps you build your client base and your audience base in relation to audio. Audio podcasts increased dramatically over this COVID period, and there's millions of podcasts out there. And the reality is that the average length of a podcast, as in the lifespan of a podcast, is less than 10 episodes. So people will start a podcast thinking that it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread for their business. And then within 10 episodes, they've decided that it's probably not the way to go. So just podcasting is a bit of a long-term game as well. So just think about that. If you can get past that 10, you're already past the average lifespan of a podcast. So that's important to understand. The next medium that we're going to talk about is graphics. So what does that look like? It looks like memes, it looks like tips, it looks like quotes, infographics, things that are easily shared on social media platforms. And if done well, they'll continue to circulate and create a life of their own. You know, even now, I get amazed. Every now and again, I'll get a notification on Facebook that something I shared on one of my business pages has just been shared by someone, and I'll go in and check because every now and again I get a bit curious because I know I haven't posted that for a while. And somewhere along the line, that post has resurfaced from maybe 2017, and someone's seen it for the first time and shared it. So if your graphics are done well, it's amazing the lifespan that they can actually achieve, because they'll keep popping up in memories, they'll keep popping up on those specifically memories, I guess, but also it'll pop up in other people's memories. So it's a really it's a very visual way. Most people are visual. Most people obviously have that as one of their key learning styles. So if you can create some graphics that draw attention to what it is that you do, whether it be a tip, a quote, or an infographic. And the important thing here is not just to use your quote. So for anyone listening, if you have written a book, every likelihood is that there's a series of quotes already out there circulating with your name on it somewhere. The reality is, don't just share your own quotes, share other people's quotes, that, you know, those sorts of things. Infographics are awesome to show your expertise. And there's an example there of one of the ones that I produced as part of a series, like I think it was a 9 skill set or a 10 skill set to build emotional intelligence. So that was skill number 3. So it was a graphic. It was shared on social media with a little bit of commentary around that. So the last bit we'll look at is what we call our combinations. Now I've got this is this is where we mix and cross-pollinate, where we repurpose content. You know, you might do a video, you then may transcribe that video through YouTube, for example. It then becomes a blog post. So this is where we're starting to talk about repurposing content and making it continue to resonate out there. This is just an example of something I do for my podcast. It is a video. I don't think you're going to hear the words, but I'll just click play and you'll get the gist.
Said that you only find out who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. Basically, this pandemic is like a tsunami tide going out, in that you really can see which leaders invested in their culture and which leaders didn't. And the leaders who didn't invest in their culture pre-COVID and relied on their officers to do it for them are the ones who are finding this transition that much harder.
So what we saw there was just a little snippet of the audio from a podcast, put onto the show image with what they call a wave format around the logo to indicate that there's something there. But we also saw the captions down on the bottom. So it's a really good way for me to repurpose content out of my podcast, for example, and I can then share that on any number of social media platforms, as well as the expert on the other end, which in this case was a guy called Brenton Putter. It allows him to share it because it's, you know, it's relatively good quality. It's out there. It's highlighting him as an expert. So this is where we can start repurposing content. So don't just be satisfied in putting out a video and thinking that's going to do that. Look at how you can then do little snapshots, how you can create it into, you may do a long form video, for example, for YouTube, and then chop it up into little bits where you're saying something absolutely brilliant into a 17-second video, putting that onto TikTok, if that's where your customer base is, or putting it into a 30-second story that you can share on Facebook or on LinkedIn or on Instagram. So this is about not just accepting that, okay, I've chosen video and that's the only way I'm going to go. No, think about it from a broader aspect. Transcription services are available for both audio and video. And, you know, it really does add some leverage into your ability to get your expertise shared. Okay, I am going to... I am going to go a little bit over, unfortunately. So I hope no one's on a hard and fast deadline for 10 o'clock Brisbane time, but I just be mindful that I probably will go over the hour. So when we talk about the dark side of content creation, this is usually just driven by ourselves. Often we'll see analysis paralysis. We know that there are people out there that know that they should be doing content, but it gives them this instant feeling of stress, worry, or anxiety. And it, you know, a lot of people have that perfectionist attitude, don't they? Where unless it's 100% perfect, they don't want to get it out there. They don't want to put it out there. Interestingly enough, I've written a book. I wanted to use that book as a little bit of a test onto how the process works, so I could understand that. The book's good. It's not a New York bestseller, but one of the first people that I gave it to rang me 2 days later and said, you know, you got a spelling mistake. That wasn't I didn't want my book to be used as like from an English teacher perspective. It was more important than that. But some people will be into that, and some people won't be that. But I suppose what I want to, don't let that stop you. Don't let the fact that someone's going to look at it and say you should have put an exclamation mark instead of a full stop. Don't let that stop you. I mean, the reality is that you want to be adding value to people more so than you want to send out an English assignment. So, because often it's our own fear that's stopping us from putting it out there. The fear of what others may think, the fear of not being read, and sometimes the fear of going viral is actually the things that stop us. The fear of being seen as wrong or people disagreeing with you. An interesting story, I published my book in 2016, the day, so I'd set the launch date, I'd done all the work, it looked fantastic, it's a great looking book. And then all of a sudden, it was due, I think 1st of September 2016 was my official launch date. As part of the self-publishing process, you've got to load it up. And all of a sudden I started seeing it on Amazon, Booktopia, all of these, right around the world, all these online book stores, and it's part of their process that they just pick these things up. And the sense of overwhelm that I actually had was really quite surprising to me, because all of a sudden, those whole things that I just spoke about, the fear of this book being out there, the fear of people saying it's not very good, the fear of all of that, I almost felt like pulling the book. So it's really important that while we may feel like that we've got a methodology in place that stops us from doing that. And for myself, it was really about the fact that there was so much work that I'd done in creating the book and putting the book out there that I think I deserved it to myself to get it out there. So, because that's another thing that we talk about. Is it good enough? So is the content persuasive? Is the content powerful? Does it inspire awe? And sometimes we can get really caught up with this, you know, whether it's in the preparatory space or preparing the content. Content creation doesn't need to be a full day project. We can practice and practice, and we can put good content together sometimes once we're practiced and skilled in a matter of minutes. Sometimes we've just got to really continue the practice process. One of the little tips that I always talk to people about is, if you're going to put out a blog post, write it one day and then don't publish it, and then reread it from a reader's perspective the next day. And by doing that, you've switched your brain from writer to reader, and that's how you start to get better at writing, because all of a sudden you're looking at it in a different content. So this one is all about practice, and the reality is, something published is better than nothing published. So I really want you to embrace that. So don't get caught up in perfectionism, get caught up in value. What is the value that you're providing out there for your customers? You do not want to miss that message. It's not about having the best or the the best English assignment, or someone can't pick apart your spelling, or someone's going to say, oh, you slipped up in that video. That's not what it's about. It's about adding value. And this is what I really want to embrace. Something published is better than nothing published. So if nothing's published, you're really not doing content marketing. So don't miss that message. Don't let perfectionism, don't let your fears stop you from sharing your value, because in many ways it's about embracing discomfort. If you look at the road between failure and success, when in doubt, embrace discomfort, because at the end of the day, where we are now is comfortable. Where we want to be is going to be a stretch. It's going to be getting us out of that comfort zone. It's going to really get rid of all those things that we're addicted to from a comfort space. So embrace that concept of discomfort, and really work hard at creating the content, and then adding that value out there into your space, into your community. Every piece of content should have a call to action. So whatever that's going to be, what do you want the person to do? Sometimes the thing that you're going to get that person to do may not necessarily drive business for you. It may be to read this other article, or to take this on board as a point for them to do themselves. But we should always be looking, what is that I want them to do? So do they buy? Do they subscribe? Do they read? Do they listen? Do they share? Do they review it? And this is about continuing to consolidate that relationship that you've got. So every little piece of content out there should have a call to action, and we shouldn't be like beating around the bush with this. This is, hey, if you like the podcast, please share and review with people, or share it with people that you know will get some value out of it. We need to be confident in what it is that we say. And the last thing is, we don't want to create content that sucks. So be really, really put in the practice, put in the work, understand what it is that your customers are yearning for, and create good quality content. When I say quality, it's about value, not about production value. And really let your content do the work for you. You don't want crickets out there. And what will ultimately happen if you're not putting out quality content is that you'll get crickets. So, which is a case of silence, I guess. So in summary, thank you very much for hanging around. I hope that you've taken some value. So we've gone through what content marketing really is. We've talked through the main purpose of what you want your content to be doing. We've looked at that success criteria of having passion and expertise. We looked at the various forms of content mediums. There's so much now. I understand 100% that in an hour, there's no way that we can go through everything in and around our content strategies, or what's going to work best for your particular content. And I would encourage you, if you still have some questions, to book in for an ASBAS consult, because that can certainly help you get some clarity around what it is or where it is that you should be going. We looked at the dark side of content creation, and fundamentally that's about us. And then the final little bit was that real encouragement to embrace discomfort. And that's how we're going to help us all succeed. So what happens next? I am going to send you an email sometime today with a copy of the link to the replay of this video. There will be a report attached to that, which is called Next Level Content Marketing. It's not my report, I haven't written it, but it is a report that I'm licensed to use, which really does help people get some more clarity around what it is that they want to do with their content. There will be a feedback form come to you via ASBAS themselves. So please, if you've really enjoyed this particular podcast, please review accordingly. It helps the government know that we are providing service and value back to our clients. And if you're interested, I have a Facebook group. It's called the Coach Call Academy. It's linked to an online academy that I have. And we have a free 30-day content marketing videos available on that Facebook group. So if doing a strategy in and around content marketing is something that you're interested in, there's videos available for free as a unit on that particular group. So with that being said, I'm going to open up to some questions if you've got them. So I'm going to stop my share. Okay. So Penelope had to go. So thank you, Penelope. So is there anyone out there that does have a question in and around anything that I've covered today or something particular or specific to your business? Just put yourself on unmute and we can go from there. Okay. I'm going to take that as a no questions then. All right. Thank you very, very much for attending the presentation. As I said, I hope it did provide you some great value. Look out for that email. Once again, that report is next level content marketing. And with that will come the link for the replay. Thanks very much. Have yourself a great day. And here's hoping it's only a 3-day lockdown here in Queensland. Talk soon, hopefully. Bye.